Hello and welcome. My name is Vex, and today we are looking at a video from a fellow Godforge creator, M's RNG. Emma, she is a professional animator and has some thoughts about the art style of Godforge, or the lack thereof, and highlights a couple key things that I think more people should look at and talk about. I've also brought in some examples from other games that I want to talk about when the time comes to it. But until then, let's watch the video. We're going to skip around a little bit. We don't have to watch the whole thing. I'll link the original video down in the comments below. Just so you're aware, we do record these live in front of a studio audience, even though most of the time the studio audience clams up. You can join the conversation live as we're recording these. I stream 4 or 5 nights a week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Links for my stream are down below as well. Sorry, I'm also trying to get over a sickness. Something has struck me. So yeah, I'm going to try not to yap too much. All right, let's watch the video.
The Godforge looks bad. There is one comment in particular that I feel like we keep seeing over and over. I've seen it on my video.
I have seen, sorry, I'm already pausing. I have seen on various videos of mine, people commenting, I would play this game, but it just doesn't look good, or people don't connect with the art style or whatnot. So like I have experienced this as well.
I've seen it on other creators' videos, on Fateless videos. I've seen a lot of people comment on this on Reddit after playing the beta, and that is simply that Godforge looks bad. Obviously not everyone agrees with this. Art and graphic is a very subjective area in general, but in this video I want to try and get into why I personally think
These comments
that
are
a lot
wild.
of people feel this way. Because I do think that there's a lot more to this question than just the fact that Godforge is in beta and it's not fully finished yet. I also want to say that I'm not highlighting any of these comments because I want to feed into hate, or I want to take part in any way spreading negativity about the game, because I do feel very positive about the game in general, but I do think that there is some merit to what people are saying here, and I want to try and do.
And then the Fire Nation attacked. This was like a week ago, and then M put out a video, full beta review, just like yesterday, and it was like 55% positive.
My best to articulate some of the issues that I'm seeing since playing the beta.
I'm not calling you out.
This comment here in particular is kind of on the money and is kind of on the topic of what I want to talk about in this video. So this one says, graphics are in that weird area in which they look good, but because they're going for that super realistic look, it doesn't look good enough. Slightly stylized, similar to Raid, maybe would have been a better approach. Right now it looks like you tried for realistic, but the budget ran out. That's a little bit harsher than what I would put it, but that is essentially what we're going to talk about in this video. On a personal level, I do think that there are things in Godforge that do look really, really good, but I do also think that there are things in Godforge that do look bad. Overall, I really love the direction of the game, and I love the vision, I guess, of what they are trying to do in this game. But I do think that there are both hits and misses in terms of execution and direction. Despite my own personal feelings and the fact that I mostly lean positive in my opinion of the game, I can 100% understand why the look of Godforge doesn't appeal to some people, and I think there's a few big reasons.
I talked about this in my beta review, and while we had the game open on stream a couple times, at the beginning of a campaign faction, it would show you, or sometimes at the end too, it would show you a parallax story, like cutscene. And those were all the same color palette, clearly the same artists worked on them. And that was such an effective and interesting way to show the story. And I think that they all worked. But then it got into the weird sort of semi-cut scenes. You're in like a scene that has been sort of modeled up, and those just kind of fell out of place compared to the parallax, which looked super well done.
that can be attributed to. Obviously, it is a beta, so I'm not going to comment too much on like specific heroes or.
I've said this before. I don't think that was a beta. I think that was an alpha. I don't believe that this game is going to release this year.
Specific small things. What I'm going to talk about is kind of the overarching style and the overarching direction that the game is going in with their visuals. So to get straight to the point, I think that Godforge struggles a little bit with an uncanny valley problem. Not the whole game, but enough of it that I think is jarring, and enough of it that I think that a lot of people are having a bad reaction to the way that the game looks currently. For anyone who's not familiar with what the uncanny valley is, I'm going to do a quick run through. If you know, you can skip this part.
Yeah, I think we're going to skip this part.
But essentially,
there's some like
the
pictures
uncanny
here.
valley is a real human being.
This Polar Express is like a pretty good one. Like you can get behind animation of characters that have exaggerated pieces of themselves, or things that are hyper realistic, like some of the Unreal Engine stuff and demos and stuff they've done. But is this Beowulf? The Beowulf movie, the Polar Express, like it's when you see the animations, the art style plus the animation just looks like it triggers that thing in your like ancient human brain. Like that thing's just slightly not human, and that's dangerous.
In this case, or you
sometimes it's like horror for
like
people. Like what is going on with? Oh, it was Beowulf. Yeah.
Wayland for me is like.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I remember seeing him in the trailer for the beta, and then in game, like with the weird pose. Like, why's he got his hands like that? He's not even got like a thumb tucked into his belt. He's just like, man. And then he's got like crazy realistic hair, and like this armor that doesn't make sense. Like, what is going on with him?
Firmly in the uncanny valley, and my response to seeing this was immediately bad. Something about the realism here for me is just taking one step too far, and I just don't like how it looks. On the flip side of that though, we have these campaign storyline images, in this case of Inari and Shinigami, and these ones I think look absolutely fantastic. Like I
agree.
Genuinely really love the look of these. And in fact, when I was going through the campaign, I was screenshotting and saving many of these images to use for video thumbnails or other graphics. I think they look fantastic, and I think that Fateless have done an incredible job on these images specifically. But I've tried to analyze kind of why this image of Wayland doesn't work for me and what the other one do. And I think to a large extent, it comes down to a few elements of this being pushed too far in the direction of realism. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with realistic images in general, but something about this feels off to me. For me, the main aspect here is the very lifelike hair. Inari and Shinigami both
His
have
hair
hair
looks
that is
so bizarre,
blocky, and leans a little bit towards an anime style. And I think this really solidifies them as 3D characters and gives a sense of a more intentional and cohesive style. It is in general, I think, very jarring to have such different styles of imagery in the same game, but that's something that I'm not going to comment on too much, as I do know it's a beta, so I'm not going to go into specifics.
I mean, like we can say that it's interesting that there's so many different types of art in the same game, and hey, it's a beta, so we can forgive that. Or we can look at Fateless being 3 years old, this game being in development for almost as long, and them releasing concept art like we used to do, Leak Fridays, where we would get every week we would get some new character with concept art, and you'd see sort of the beginning process all the way to some like 3D modeling of the character. Like, if a game is in beta, we should definitely have the art style down pat. Like, we're a little bit too late for major changes to things. So like, I think there's really no excuse for, like, you can't say, oh, it's a beta, so we can forgive some stuff. Like, this is the art style. They're not gonna say, oh, we're gonna wait another year of dev time and swap things. Like, this is just how it's gonna be.
But I definitely do feel like there are two
Crop the edges of the second pic as badly. You saying like because he's cropped badly, like sort of like a PNG? You mean? I mean the lighting doesn't sort of work with whatever else is going on, but
many different kind of like styles of 3D and render, and too many different levels of realism in this game.
I mean we had that character, we had that Inari character, and she looked good in game.
Point out that I'm not just hating on Wayland. Like, it's not Wayland's character design that I don't like, it's just the way that he's rendered. I have the same issues with many of the kind of pop-up dialogue boxes that we get, and especially so too, because many of these come straight after kind of like the storyline images. So when you have like one kind of image style and then you have something come after that is way more realistic, rendered completely differently, that almost gives the sense of like a little bit of like a jump scare to me. When I look at the hero specific.
Yeah, but so like if you say in like a JRPG or in like Zenless, the characters. Sorry, dog hair in my mouth. If you see in like a JRPG, I'm thinking like maybe Persona, where you do have a game that has two different art styles. There's the 3D anime art style, and then there's the 2D anime art style that pops up whenever there's dialogue happening. Like, I can see within the world of the game that those two things are coherent. In this game, I can't see that those two are the same and coherent. And maybe that's just because we didn't see enough of those characters that are like hyper realized. But I can't imagine seeing Shishi in the same way that Wayland was represented. But what was it? Gilgamesh, right? I'm pretty sure that's Gilgamesh. Like, we see Gilgamesh in game, and he doesn't look like that. Like, he looks like the rest of the characters modeled out. I don't know.
That is way more realistic, rendered jump scare to me. When I look at the heroes specifically in Godforge, many of them do look really, really good. Like, these are two that I really like. But many of them do give off a sense of uncanniness, I think. And in a lot of cases...
Oh, God. I do not like the way Apollo looks.
I think this is down.
I don't know what it is. I think it's, like, his proportions. But when I saw him in the character, like, index, like, he just looks strange. It could be his animations. I don't know. Something about him just doesn't jive with me.
Facial animations and the way that they kind of move in a very human way. Like, there's not much exaggeration to the animations. And I know this is a realistic game, but I think they are just one step in the direction of trying to be too lifelike, which makes the faces feel quite creepy, and it makes them feel hard to kind of connect to. Like, almost any animation, regardless of how realistic you go, needs to have like an element of being like a little bit speedier, a little bit snappier than how a human would move.
Man,
like,
that's
one animation
crazy.
Pretty hard to kind of connect to. It's snappier.
The difference, like, I we shouldn't really compare them because Watcher Realms has been out for a couple of years. They've made a ton of money. They have a huge team backing them. Like, but the difference of animations is crazy.
Them feel hard to kind of connect to. Like, almost any animation, regardless of how realistic you go, needs to have like an element of being like a little bit speedier, little bit snappier than how a human would move. Like, that's one animation principle that we learn very early on, is that like the amount of time it takes a human to do something, you should almost never have the same amount of time pass in an animation. Like, if it takes a human 10 seconds to walk a certain distance, those 10 seconds in animation will feel like a lifetime to the viewer. Like, if you're doing very like cartoony animation, it needs to be like half or less. But even really realistic animation.
So I went to college for game art, and 3D modeling was like fine, but animation was my downfall. Oh God.
Feels weird when it moves like in a kind of like 1-to-1 ratio of how a human moves. I think many of the animations in Godforge need like a tiny bit more snap, a tiny bit more exaggeration to make them really feel like characters in a game and not like something that is trying to be human.
I
The
wish I
other
had
thing
Fable
with the
queued up.
heroes in Godforge is that even when I look at the heroes that I really, really love, like Shishi and Hel here, I cannot quite pinpoint a clear stylistic direction. I can't describe the style of Godforge, like even when I try. All the way through the development process, I've seen lots
Yeah,
of people.
it's like kind of realistic, but kind of cartoony because the colors are super bright on some characters. It's kind of trying to have its own style, but it's kind of not. It's trying to appeal to raid players, but it's kind of not.
Comment that Godforge looked bad, and I don't entirely agree, but the response from Fateless always seemed to be, oh, we're adding more detail, we're adding more polish, we're adding more texture, we're adding more everything essentially.
Lighting.
But the more you
A lot of like band-aid, oh, we're fixing the lighting.
push in this direction, and the more you push more and more and more to achieve realism, the more it needs to be absolutely flawless and absolutely perfect for people to not find it uncanny. And if you cannot achieve that level of like realism that people are comfortable with, it is almost always a better approach to refine your characters by taking something back, by finding some elements of style that you can kind of apply across all heroes, finding a few different ways to pull your designs back so that they feel more acceptable and more visually appealing to the player base. Because if you look at where we are right now with this game, we have a huge player base of people who are interested in this game because they're invested in Godforge and the success of Fateless. There are so many of us who have watched Simon and the other members of Fateless for a very long time, and we all love what they do, and we want Fateless to succeed, and we believe in the message, and we believe in the product that they are trying to make. But any new player who might find out about this game from, like social media advertising or through recommendations from a friend, they're not going to have the same investment from the start, and they are not going to be willing to push past either a bad new player experience or
This is totally aside and has nothing to do with the art, but is more like a user experience thing. And this is like a known thing, but leveling up a character from level 1 star to level 66 star takes like a half hour. It's a crazy amount of time investment. Like apparently it's being fixed. Like there's going to be some quality of life options for that. But like I level 60 Wukong, and I didn't want to do that again for a different character.
A bad new player experience or visuals that just doesn't appeal to them. And I am personally a bit worried about the direction that Fateless is going in terms of visuals, because I do worry that it's not going to be universally well perceived. So
I think it's like I don't want to make excuses, but like it could also be a factor of the business being so global. Like, yeah, there's an art director, but how much say does that art director have over, however many artists? Like, if all of the artists are under one roof, literally, they can all work together, they can all collab together, they can all sort of bounce off each other. It depends on the workflow. But, like, you got one person on concept art, and then you've got 10 different people on modeling. Like, how much different individual influence are you going to get? Like, you're going to have to, as an art director, you're going to have to, like, really lock down and make, like, a really good sort of reference kit to show people what they need to be doing. They need to adopt the style that they're going for and get rid of their style for that, professional work. Yeah, so if you come from like Raid or Watcher Realms or whatever, and you are trying to market yourself to those players who are disenfranchised or, feeling negative about how the company treats them as a player because they've spent so much money on it, you've got to try to appeal to those people. And you can only do so much via word of mouth. You can only make so many promises. So maybe the idea was to make like a sort of similar Raid style, but they didn't capture it. Or they tried to make something similar to Raid, but with their own spin. And their own spin sort of leaned too much into realism in some ways. But it isn't the same across every character. and there's 200 and some characters. So like, yeah.
To demonstrate my point, I want to kind of break down the visual style of a couple of other games. So if you start with Raid, for example, Raid has a very recognizable style that is generally held in quite high regard. Some of the very recognizable things that you can see across basically all of Raid's character is that they all have very high contrast with kind of very high contrast shadows and highlight that kind of unifies the whole look, that makes the character feel very like bright and vibrant. They use very vibrant colors in general, and they also use very complementary colors that helps with that kind of contrast in every hero. They're also very consistent in terms of like facial structures and the way that face and hair and everything are modeled, which does make the whole game feel very cohesive, and there's very few characters that kind of stand out, even the ones that have like very different body shapes or, you know, look.
Yeah, so I want to bring in my own Raid real quick. Not to... Treasure Cat, hello. Not to, like, try to draw too many comparisons, but I want to talk about this with another game as well. But they did a collab with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They did a collab with Monster Hunter. They did a collab with Assassin's Creed. They did a collab with He-Man. I don't want to talk about Ninja. He-Man, you know. So like, they've got all these characters that are from outside the game, and they still look like they're from the game. Don't pay attention to my builds. I know they suck. So they still look like Raid, which is, I think, the point. Like, if you were to add in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Godforge, like, what would they look like? You know, they would look like their own group of
Look a bit
things.
crazy, like they're always recognizably Raid. Looking at Watch Your Realms instead,
Oh, I
they
love their art
use a
style.
lot less saturated colors. Like the color scheme is a
softer
little
faces.
bit more flat, is a little bit more like dreamy, which I think fits really well with what they're going for. They have much more of like
Just wish the game was more
focus on
fun.
the eyes. Like the eyes are like slightly exaggerated and lean like a tiny bit towards anime. They also have kind of like slightly smaller facial features in the rest of the face. So like the eyes are a little bit bigger, the mouth and nose are a little bit smaller, and that kind of adds to that feeling of feeling a little bit anime. If we go back to looking at Heroes from Godforge, I feel like that stylistic direction.
I feel like you can do that though with Zenless Run. Zenless runs limited events with wildly carrying art style. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, Zenless does do different art styles for various events, even within like their sort of splash art. The gameplay is always like the same art style, I feel like, but the events themselves, even if there's like dialogue or whatnot, they have different art styles. Neverness to Everness is also showing this. I think you can do that. Yeah. I think you can do that as long as like there's still an anchor and it's just sort of adjacent. So kind of similar to the thing I was talking about earlier with Persona. Like you've got there's no Zenless event that's like, here's Billy hyper realistic, or here's Noelle in a cutscene and she looks hyper realistic, and this whole event is going to be RTX on hyper realism. Like, it still sticks with the same adjacent anchor point of the main style of the game. And I think most of the characters from Godforge have a similar base point, and I think that comes from having like a good I think they have a very small amount of people who work on concept art, as well as I think they still have the same art director from the beginning. I could be wrong. So I think having a really good starting point has given them that, but I still think that there's a lack of cohesion across the board, even if it's the campaign, it's the story, it's the menus, it's the pop-ups, it's the actual characters, it's the animations.
It is not clear. And I really do struggle to pinpoint kind of like what the look of Godforge is. Like the look just feels like 3D and realism. And if that is done really well, that can work. But I feel like Godforge would have much more of an edge if they had something, like something in the style that felt original and unique to them. Because the thing is that when you have heroes that are as varied as the heroes are in Godforge, with so many heroes from different cultures, with very different color schemes, very different looks, it's extra important that there's a theme in terms of style that makes the whole...
So here's where I want to jump in. There is a game that has various gods from various religions and cultures, and it has a very cohesive art style, with varying characters of varying shapes. I didn't want to re-download the game because I don't want to get sucked back into this. It's a super fun game, turn-based gacha, called Dislight. And Nezha, Li Ling here, was one of my favorite characters, actually. Super fun. You're going to get Smite. There's also Smite. Lots of gods and coherent art style. Even when they brought in cel-shaded avatar skins, that still kind of fit the world. It was that's a little pushing it, but you know what I mean. This game, every character is a god. Here's Set. There's Anubis, Nezha, Artemis. There's Thor. Whatever. Like freaking Santa Claus. Like there's like so many characters in this game, and all of the menus, all of the backgrounds of the menus, because the main menu is very much like a 3D scene. The rhythm game in this, the various events, the different towers, everything has the same art style. You've got an anime sort of exaggerated features, as well as like high saturation, and exaggerated like body silhouettes. They unlike some of the other gacha games, don't have like a small amount of silhouettes or like body templates to start with. Like I think Genshin has like 6. There's like the tall guy, the short guy, the tall girl, the short girl. These are all pretty unique. And it's a shame the game isn't just like better, because the art style is very clear and very cohesive. And it's like sort of got like a modern kick to it, which I really like. Rhythm game, yeah, it's like a DJ rhythm game, which is kind of interesting, but it's like very simple, right? Because it's a mobile game, but
whole game feel cohesive and kind of create that look that people will recognize instantly as like, that is Godforge. And currently I can't really find what that is. And because of that, I do feel like Godforge is slightly lacking an edge or like a selling point visually that will help them stand out and look unique, and that will kind of pull people in to be like, oh my god, I want to see more of this. I do want to say as well that, like, obviously I'm not saying that every hyper-realistic game falls into the uncanny valley and that realistic games cannot succeed, because that is not at all the case. Like, there are lots of examples of very realistically rendered games that do really well. The Last of Us is a great example of this, but as I said before, when you go in this direction,
Resident
it has
Evil.
to be absolutely flawless, and it also has to be absolutely flawless across the entire game. And that is something that is very, very hard to achieve. And I'm not sure how smart it is to be this ambitious with the first title that a game studio puts out. I would personally really, really love to see Godforge achieve something similar to this look here, but across all the heroes in the game. Obviously, Last of Us is a great example of...
You're talking about this one? I mean, this could be like a character portrait. I've not played the game, so I don't know where that comes from.
And heroes and creatures, and like, if the game could achieve this look overall, I think...
Okay, we're going to talk about other games real quick. We'll probably skip around a little bit more in M's video. So we talked about Dislight. I want to talk more about cohesion and random things thrown into a game. The biggest thing that I think of when I think of a cohesive art style and random things fitting into that art style is World of Warcraft. Yeah, the art style has evolved over time. Like if you take a look at even just trees in the game now in the most recent expansion versus trees in classic World of Warcraft, they look different, right? But that's because of like the power of the engines and what the devs needed to showcase versus put in the game to like make things actually function, right? But armor sets come out every few months and they look like they're a part of the game, but they all look they have different silhouettes. They look like a part of the world, like they come from whatever boss or whatever region you're in. And each distinct region, each distinct expansion looks like it's part of the world, even if they do like, oh hey, here's what the textures look like in HD now. Like it still looks like it's part of the same game. You can go back to the Burning Crusade, you can go back to Hellfire Peninsula, and see that's WoW. You can go forward into Battle for Azeroth and fight Jaina and see that that's part of World of Warcraft. Even when Mists of Pandaria came out and like ruffled a bunch of feathers because they decided to make an entire expansion off like a tiny little lore bit from a random part in World of Warcraft 3. That's beside the point. The pandas looked like they're part of the world. Yeah, they had a little bit of a bouncy, sort of joyous art style, but the world of Pandaria looked like it fit in World of Warcraft. They have a cohesive art style. And this is part of like what an art director needs to do. And I don't want to blame anybody in particular, but there's a very, very good talk. I can't remember this person's name. Peter Ellis. There we go. I've watched this a bunch of times over the years, and this is the art style over the years from the very early development of Fortnite into Fortnite Save the World into Fortnite Battle Royale. This is old now. They've since changed art styles, which I think was a bad idea because Fortnite in the beginning had a stylistic reach. I don't know. They had a distinct style that made the game different than every other battle royale and whatnot. But I think as they become like more and more saturated with like various, like Funko Pop type collabs, the game has sort of lost its identity. But you can see it with like this idea of like, okay, you're an artist starting day one at Epic Games working on Fortnite, and they hand you this and they're like, okay, here, make a gun, but whenever you make a shape, you have to taper it somehow. You have to make it look like the rest of everything that's going on in our world. And they have tons of examples of this, of how they make like sort of real world things look like they fit in Fortnite because they look a little bit cartoony and kooky. So I'm going to link this down in the description. If you've not watched this and you care about art, I very highly recommend this because they talk about the style evolutions and how they arrived at the place that they were at least for a couple of years, and made it very distinct and very cohesive in a studio of like, a ton of people. I don't know how many people were in the studio at this point, but I'm sure it was a lot of people that needed to abide by this and remove their personal styles and work solely in this style. Super good talk. Next, I know I have highlighted quite a few anime things and talked about this, but Arknights is another one. Arknights has been around for like 10 years now. It's a mobile game. It's a gacha game. It's Watcher of Realms, but better. If you... I think I have another... Yeah. If you showed me a skin, like, oh, hey, a new skin's coming out for this character, and you told me it was by an artist that is totally new to Arknights, I would know that it's part of Arknights because no matter who the artist is, no matter what the character is, it's always got the same style, which is kind of crazy. Like you can tell here and there, like, oh, this person uses these colors more abundantly, so it's that particular artist. But it all works in the game because it's all cohesive. It all comes from the same framing. And if I'm looking at some of the characters for Godforge, they just, I don't know, something about it just doesn't fit the same framing. Like if I look at Svarog, he's got these like crazy defined muscles. And no other character. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be at least one character that also has that. But like none of these other characters have these crazy defined muscles. And like I don't know. I don't know if it's a color pass, I don't know if it's a lighting pass, but like these just don't feel like they're from the same game. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the faces. I feel like I'm not I'm not enough of an artist to really feel like where we're at and where we're going and what the goal is. Like look at King Arthur's face. Like he's got like wrinkles in his face. Mulan doesn't have that detail. Inari doesn't have that detail. Svarog barely has that detail. Like it looks like King Arthur was like, "Oh, hey, we're gonna make a mobile World of Warcraft game," and then Inari was like, "Okay, we're gonna make this in the style of like Raid." Like it's just so strange because you look at the character index and there's so many different styles. You can't even pin it, and like I'm not even talking about the portraits. The portraits are a totally different thing because they all have a different style, like each and every one, which is absolutely crazy.
I think that would be a real selling point, and I think they would really set Godforge apart from other game and also make the game feel really cohesive where it really doesn't right now. If this is not a direction that Fatas want to or are able to go in, it does need to be something else. Like they do have to find some way to unify all of the visuals in the game, whether that's, you know, the storyline, the dialogue pop-ups, the heroes. Currently there are so many competing styles and it makes the game feel incredibly jarring. And I don't think it's just down to the fact that it's in beta, because there's only so much that adding more polish will do. I think this is a case where if Fateless want to succeed and if they want to
if feudal lords want to succeed,
appeal to a massive audience, which they have said several times that they want to do, they need to find areas where they can pull back, and they need to find kind of.
I think the Fortnite and World of Warcraft like pick a style, and the same with like Clash of Clans, right? Like there's a bunch of Clash of Clans style games, but that one sticks out because it has an interesting art style. It's different than other type of game. And with like if you're trying to make a name in a space that's oversaturated with games, you have to have a style. Like even within, if I'm thinking about like Hoyo games, I can tell if a character is from Star Rail versus Genshin versus Zenless Zone Zero. Just by looking at the character, I can tell what game they're from because the identity is so strong in those characters. And without like differentiating yourself too much or enough and making it cohesive, I think it's just going to get muddied. And you know, maybe that's a goal. Maybe it's to just be as close to Raid as possible without actually being Raid. I don't know. Those games have way more money. That's another thing. And she kind of mentioned like, well, so if you have if you have an art style, you could sort of use that to your advantage. Like with like the blocky hair, you save on polygons. Like you can use that to your advantage. It could also be that there's an attempt to match character art styles with environment art styles. I have noticed that some of the environments look as if they are asset store packs. I'm not throwing shade. I think that's totally fair. I think it's totally fine. I've played a ton of games that have had assets in it that I recognize. I have recognized some assets, but I do know that they have a couple full-time environment artists. I think that maybe if they're working with a certain style of stuff, they're going to try to keep that cohesive, and then they're going to try to make the characters fit into that while having their own unique art to it. But then you get another thing where you get like multiple art styles clashing. I don't know. To like the regular person, maybe it doesn't matter, but you know, whatever.
Elements whether that's like a specific way to do faces or a specific way to do hair that they can use to unify like the look of the whole game. Because like I do want this game to succeed, but having been in the beta and having had a look at where the game is currently, especially considering the fact that this was meant to be early access and this was meant to be kind of put out as the first version of the game. Like, I know this is a live ops game and they can keep changing things and adding things and updating visuals as we go, but I think it would have been very dangerous to put this version of the game out as early access, because that would be the point where many players would make up their mind whether they want to play this game or not. And I'm very worried about their ability to appeal to people who don't have the same investment that many of us do. I'm going to end this video by jumping.
I think I also want to mention that if a game doesn't catch somebody visually, it can catch them gameplay wise. There's not, not everybody is all about the visuals, and say like vice versa. But I think this game also lacks an interesting gameplay, if we're being real. Like, we just had 14 days in beta, and the consensus is like, this was a crazy beta. There was a ton of bugs. There really wasn't much to do, and the combat and like leveling up characters is like okay. Where does the game stand out? Okay, the imprint system, the weapon system, sure, but if one's not stellar, if the art's not particularly cohesive and stellar, then the gameplay has to be, and if the gameplay's not stellar, then the art has to be, and we're kind of at like a middle point with both. Like, they can both be improved. And here I am sitting on my high horse talking about this like I know anything about anything. But as a player, it was some days kind of a struggle to open the game. And like, even if I'm looking at this Sanctum map, like I remember some of the I did some of the Friday leaks of the Sanctum and what it could look like, and my thought was like, oh man, maybe there's going to be a bunch of different ones, and they're going to be different art styles, or they're going to be different factions, and we could just choose whatever one we want. And this just looks sort of muddied. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't have any like life. There's like weird scale. We talked about that with like the quest table and whatnot. There's weird scale. There's like different colors going on, but they're all kind of muted and muddied, and I don't know. I think there's just a lot to improve, which is again why I don't think this game's releasing this year.
Into the game to have a look at some of the visuals directly, and I do really want to highlight some of the things that I do think look really good, because I think it deserves to be mentioned. It's not all bad. There are a lot of things that they are doing really well, and I think not highlighting that would be to do this game a disservice. And I do want this video to be as nuanced as possible, because I want it to be very clear that I'm not saying that I think that everything in Godforge looks bad. So
yeah,
one of the
of
things I
course.
think they have done really well is I do really love almost all of the backgrounds here in the campaign stages. I think these backgrounds are beautiful.
Also, a crazy different art style change. Like, the Izumo one is like super bright pink, lots of cherry blossoms, and it just like, when you go from like the super dark, weirdly muddied Sanctum to like this super bright, there's maybe they can add some animations for some birds flying or whatever, fish in the water. Like, it's a crazy jump.
I really love how it really paints a picture
Oh, here you
of
go.
like
This looks really good, but like compared to like the the little stamp with the boot on it, the stage number, like, and the buttons and like the stuff up here, like, it looks so different.
traveling through all of these worlds rather than just having like a list of the stages. Yeah, like the different moods, the kind of fog. This one kind of falls into the same kind of look as the story images, of like that slight grain and a slight misty feel that I think does a really, really good job of creating atmosphere. I also think that so many of the character designs are really, really good and really interesting. Like, I love the color scheme on this. I love her clothes. I love the way her hair falls in her face. Like, I think that all of the elements
Yeah,
of
it's
great
cool.
characters are in there. So none of what I'm saying is saying that, like, that the components aren't there. I think there are so many well-designed characters, but I think the look of it and the kind of reliance on realism really does do a lot of the characters a disservice. Another thing that I think looks fantastic, that I was really, really kind of excited when I first saw, is all of these portraits here of like the imprints. I think like this is like an area where they've done an incredible job in terms of like high contrast and drama, and the way that almost all of these have very kind of glowing bright eyes. These are so appealing. But yeah, that's kind of it for this one for me. I honestly want the best for Fateless.
Okay. Yeah, I also want the best for Fateless, which is why I say it in like every video, is why I'm so harsh. I hope I don't come across as too much of a hater. I play the game. I played every day of beta. Like I want to play the game. I cover the game. I've covered the game for almost 2 years. Like at this point, there's also a little bit of like, make the game good so I didn't waste my time, So I didn't like shill people something that's bad. Like I want it to be good. I want them to succeed. And talking about the art is not something that I've really done, besides some of the like concept art stuff that we got from the old leaks. And I saw M's video, and I figured at some point we'd react to it. So, yeah, if you want to check out her video, check out her channel. Links for that will be in the description. Let me know your thoughts on Godforge art. I think there's some cohesion problems and room for improvement that's beyond just sort of polishing and lighting passes. I think there's just slightly bigger issues than that. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, okay, well, they're limited by the engine. And then I'm going to come back to, I don't think that they should have used Unity. But that's my personal opinion. Anyway, until next time, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, come check out the Twitch channel. I'll see you there. Bye.